Welcome to the Recovery Daily podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And I just came in from working on a flea market flip table, and it looks amazing. I had a visit by my daughter and her boyfriend, and they brought me it's an old turntable coffee table that has like the top of the table like opens like I can't think of the word, accordion, like an accordion kind of opening, and inside was a turntable that was not salvageable, so I gutted the whole thing and painted the outside this super cool like gray glossy color. And then I left the speakers on the outside of the table intact in a dark brown. And that was recommended by my sobriety network ladies. And it just looks so cool. So what I decided to do, because I needed something exciting on the inside, like something that gave it some character. And I also wanted to keep the idea of the table alive, that it was a turntable where you would play albums on it. So I ordered album covers. They're kind of like yay big, maybe 3 inch by 3 inch squares of album cover pictures. And I'm decoupaging the whole inside with modern album covers. So I have not told her this, my daughter, or her boyfriend. So if she's listening, we'll see if she's listening. Now you know that I'm decoupaging the inside, and it's super, super cool. And it's going to be a bar for those of you who don't know. It's going to be a bar. So I was just out in the sun. I probably got a little too much sun, but I did put on suntan lotion. Anyway, so that was kind of a fun afternoon for me. I love doing my crafts. I'm feeling a little bit better each day as I have pulled away entirely from scrolling on my digital devices. So, yeah, I'm not obsessing about looking at houses on Redfin. I am trying really hard not to scroll through social media at all, but I probably like scroll like once, really slow, and just kind of like somebody's post or something. It's difficult because I want to communicate with people, and really the best way for me to do that is to call someone. So I'm trying. I also did yoga today, so that's pretty exciting that I'm getting back into that. So since I've announced it for this month's challenge, listener challenge, I've done it every other day. As you recall, I was like, 6 days a week, yoga, that's what we're doing, at least for 5 minutes. I was kind of laughing at myself. The next day, I was like, they must think you're crazy. I am a little crazy. So I have been doing every other day for an hour. But the listener challenge is just to do some yoga for 5 minutes, 6 days a week. And that, even though I'm doing an hour of yoga for every other day, I still do my yoga stretches before bed. So that counts. That's 5 minutes. And that's what we're doing. And I am listening to the book of the month as well, called Drunk Mom, a Memoir. And it started out a little dry, pardon the pun, but it's pretty good. She has a really good way of explaining what it feels like to want to drink, to have that irresistible urge. So I'm enjoying it. I'm listening to it, of course. So with that out of the way, today's also my stepmother's birthday. So happy birthday, my stepmother. And that brings us to the topic of the day. So, what I heard this morning, we read from the big book, and the story's called Women Suffer Too. I think that's what it was called. And so much resonated with me in this story, and it's very much kin to what I'm hearing in the book of the month as well. Just really, really well explained feelings of desperation and even drunk mom. What it talked about that I heard this morning was and yesterday was this joy. Like it feels like joy. I'm so happy. Everything makes me happy when I'm drinking. She was doing cocaine, and that is not part of my story. But then the next day, or several days later, she's drinking, and it's the same kind of feeling where everything, you're so happy. I'm so happy about everything in my life. I remember that, but yet when I stopped drinking, it was like I wasn't happy anymore. I had to have alcohol in my body to feel that happiness. And it wasn't real happiness, it was painted on happiness. It feels real, but it's not real. Today, I want to talk about the cycle of addiction, that thing that once brought us pleasure quickly turns into something that is to dull pain instead of bringing pleasure. Um, I remember so many stories of how much fun I had when I was drinking. Every time I thought of drinking, I thought of pleasure and fun and relaxing and relief. And I probably have way more years of memories of that than I do when things got bad, when I was dulling the pain. But once it switched over to dulling pain, I couldn't find pleasure if I tried. So this story this morning that I heard about Women Suffer Too resonated very deeply with me and my own experiences. One thing that it talks about is that morning drink, and how it was a way to bring a sense of relief when I woke up. When I opened my eyes, I did not want to face the day. But if I was going straight to the kitchen, to the refrigerator, then I was willing. I was willing. And it became a necessity in order to, towards the end, in order to even be able to stand upright, I needed to have alcohol in my body, physically stand erect. Otherwise, I was just doubled over in agony, because I wasn't eating. So I needed to get that alcohol in my body in order to have enough sugar in my body. And I don't know how the chemicals all work together. I just knew what it felt like. That first drink was urgent for me. It was offering a promise of pleasure, or at least relief from the discomfort that I would wake up with. And over time, it became less about looking forward to that drink for pleasure, for getting that buzz, because I wanted that buzz like as soon as I woke up. I didn't want to ever not be buzzed anymore. That's what my story was like. I needed to have a buzz on all the time, 24/7. And eventually it became less about the buzz and more about dulling the pain that I was feeling. And that pain was physical because I wasn't taking care of my body. I was extremely dehydrated. I didn't eat. I was underweight. I didn't exercise. I didn't move my body. So I was, I swear, no doctor ever told me, but I swear I was starting to have muscle atrophy in my feet. But she didn't say that. I don't think she knew how, um, just I wasn't moving, standing up or anything. I was always sitting or laying down. So, that when that morning necessity started, that was when I see that the cycle became very dangerous in my life. I mean, not that it wasn't extremely harmful prior to that, but that was when I was entering a state of, if if I were to decide to get sober, I would have to go into a facility and be supervised by a medical professional in order to get sober, in order to remove the alcohol from my system. Um, the book that I heard this morning, or the story Women Suffer Too in the Big Book, she talked in detail about how this cycle plays out. She describes how alcohol, which initially brought her excitement and confidence, gradually took over her life, her career. Morning drinks became a routine, not because they were giving her some sort of thrill, but because they were necessary in order to fight off the withdrawal symptoms, the shaking, the nausea, and then the emotional pain. There's a lot of emotional pain that I was just covering up. And once the alcohol dried up, it was like that emotional pain came to the surface and it was just stuck in my throat, and I needed to drink it back down into my dark place. So, one of the things that I struggled with in my active alcoholism, or when I first stopped drinking, was, and she mentions this in the story this morning, this desire for an intellectual answer to what is fundamentally an emotional problem. It's a spiritual problem, I wanted to understand my addiction in a way that made sense to me logically, scientifically. And but the truth is that alcoholism doesn't fit neatly into one box, one medical area. It is messy. There's so many of us that are alcoholics, and we all have a completely different background, a completely different makeup. It's not like everybody who suffered some sort of childhood trauma is an alcoholic. That's not true. I didn't have any childhood trauma that would have caused me some sort of PTSD that I was drinking over. So alcoholism is very messy and it's emotional. It's deeply tied to our fears and insecurities and past traumas, but it's also connected to our genes, you know? So looking for an intellectual answer the best I could do, and it was enough for me, was going to IOP. And this is the outpatient class that lasts 10 weeks. And I would go, I think twice a week. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been 3 times a week, but I have a feeling it was 2 times a week. And I would go there along with other fellow alcoholics that just got out of detox. And we would learn about the disease. We would learn about how to live life with the disease. And that helped me to understand that I'm not just a loser like I thought I was. I'm not just weak. I'm not just somebody who has no willpower. It didn't have anything to do with that. It had to do with a disease. It was a disease, and it is a disease. And to follow up, one thing that I heard in early sobriety was about that book, the Alcoholism, the Myth. And I was able to learn even more about what it does to our bodies, what it does to our organs, what it does to our minds. And I needed that because if I just thought that I didn't have any willpower or that I was a loser or I was just emotionally disturbed, I wouldn't have been able to stay sober. What I needed was to know that this is a medical condition. And when I was able to really believe that, I was willing to fight it. I was willing to do what it took to give myself the medicine I needed in order to get better. Um, so in the story this morning, the author of the story searches for these answers too. You know, she questions why she drinks, why she can't stop, and why she tries to make these promises that she's going to stop, but she never does. And she, like many of us, wants to find a reason that makes sense. And what she discovered, and what I have discovered too, is that the answer is not purely intellectual, but I can satisfy that need for an intellectual answer by doing the research and finding out how to improve my emotional and spiritual well-being. And some of those things that were needed was to see a therapist, was to go to my meetings, was to meet with my sponsor and work through the steps. And it becomes a deeply personal journey because, you know, when you're drinking all by yourself and it's nighttime, there's nobody around, and those thoughts that you have about how terrible you are, how you're unworthy of getting better, that's deeply personal. And when you take the drink away, the steps, the sponsor, the community, the therapist, all of this helps you to dig into that area of you that thinks that stuff and dig into it when you're sober. It's hard to get there when you're sober, you know? But once you do, you can start cleaning that out. Um, the phrase that came to my mind this morning when I'm hearing about this need to like wake up and drink right away is bite the snake that bit you. I used to say that all the time because that phrase existed, it was my excuse. I'm not the only one who does this, who wakes up and drinks first thing in the morning, because if I was the only one, there wouldn't already be a saying for it. Oh, I gotta bite the snake that bit me, and that was my excuse until that became my way of life. If I felt bad at all, I drank to feel better, even though I knew deep down that drinking is why I felt bad in the first place. But what else is there to do? I certainly wasn't going to not drink, because that wasn't going to take care of things. And that's the cycle of addiction. We use the very thing that's harming us as a way to try to escape from that harm, only to find ourselves deeper and deeper into that cycle. So, in the story, that cycle was very clear to me. She drinks to forget, to feel something different, or to escape from the reality that she's living in. But each drink only brings her further away from the person that she wants to be and closer to the person that she's afraid that she's going to become, that she is becoming. So, what stood out in this book to me was a message of hope, because it shows her transformation and how she moved from a place of deep despair into a place of recovery, a place of freedom from that cycle, breaking free from the cycle. And she finds that by following the steps, just like me, and being honest with herself and others, and seeking a spiritual solution, looking at that emotional stuff that really was haunting when we were drinking. Oh, I got it. I can feel it. It was so dark. The things that I would think when I was drinking, it was so dark. I wouldn't want to go in there again. It's a room and there's a lock on it, and I'm not going in there. It's like a dark room and I don't want to go in there, because it's so cold and empty and sad in there. And this is how I'm able to break that cycle. Why would I ever open that door again? So this story was a reminder for me that that I really did the unimaginable at the time, um, breaking that cycle of addiction. There was always a way out, but I didn't see it. Um, I feel very, very fortunate, blessed, as I've taught. I always smile when I say blessed because of my blessed episode, but that I was able to do it, because so many people don't. And that's why I feel so passionate about sharing every day, because every day people are dying. Every day somebody's picking up a drink and they don't want to. Every day people are picking up a drink and thinking, I don't know if I have a problem or not. If you're thinking, I don't know if I have a problem or not, you probably have a problem. It requires honesty and willingness and courage to face that stuff, face the emotions. And I remember being faced with this. Okay, I have to do this, and I know it's possible, but is it worth it? Is it worth it to put down the drink and put down the partying and put down the fun in order to address this problem that, something bad doesn't happen every time I drink? Wait, every time I drink, something bad doesn't happen, but every time something bad happens, I'm drinking. So is it worth it to stop drinking? Um, it's not comfortable to look at. It's really not. But all I can say with 100% um, passion is that my life, my life became everything I always wanted it to be when I stopped drinking, when I stopped working the steps. That is when I really became the version of myself that I didn't know was in there. And it's the God's honest truth. It couldn't, I couldn't let that beauty out until I took away the drink. Um, so that's what I have for you today. And thanks for listening to the Recovery Daily podcast. And I will talk to you tomorrow.